Hello and welcome back to another episode where we will be talking about glamorization, evolutionary rewards, and much, much more. So welcome to the Finally Quit Porn podcast. How are you doing today, Mary?
I'm doing good. Very nice day. Yep. Ready to talk some more about this glamorizing.
Yeah, for sure. And we've just been debating a lot about the evolution in neuroscience. It's been
Yeah.
good. I mean, maybe we could have put it into the podcast, but I'm sure we'll get into it more now. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would definitely say in the past and even very recently, I have often used the term evolutionary reward to describe the orgasm, whether that's in relation to sex or whether it's in relation to pornography. That is why, in my opinion, up until I guess suppose recently and maybe this podcast, I have kind of thought, yeah, that's why people get hooked on porn, is because they're getting this huge evolutionary reward of the orgasm, and that's how the brain has changed over time. And so then people crave porn again in the future because from this evolutionary standpoint, they feel like their genes are getting replicated, and therefore that's going to have some benefit to them. So over to you, I suppose, Mary, because I know you have a bit of a different opinion on this.
Well, I just feel like everything that we do in this work supports empowerment. And addicts look for any reason they possibly can well, the addictive part of the mind, that's, I don't want to like blame the person, right? It's the addictive part of the mind looking for any reason that it's going to be out of their control. And though this is a biological wiring that, just happens to you, and it's going to be a biological reward, I mean, that might have been the case how long ago? 10,000 years ago, where people were biologically wired to reproduce, to save the species, whatever, okay, that seems legit, but how does it serve people in the moment when they have an addiction? Because if this biological wiring, okay, might have, you come into your sexuality, and guys especially, they want to fuck, I mean, that's just biological. Yes, it's biological, but then pornography comes into it, and to be calling it a reward, that's the addicted part of the mind, wants to make you think it's going to be rewarding. But when you look at the consequences of engaging in a pornography addiction, I don't see anything rewarding about that at all. It's really not a rewarding thing. And it's very different, very different, those two: pornography addiction and the biological desire to continue the species.
Mm.
It's really, I mean, I feel like at this point, are people even wired that way? I mean, if stop reproducing in my there's too many people on this planet, it's destroying the planet. So stop reproducing. But
I
I
guess
just
what
feel
you're
like,
saying, I
yeah,
guess what you're saying though, overall, like your standpoint, like based on the debate we were just having a minute ago as well, was essentially, the neuroscience or like the evolutionary standpoints and that side of it, especially the evolutionary standpoint, because I know like you're a big fan of the neuroscience and neuroplasticity and the way in which you can change
yeah,
the brain. But the evolutionary point is a bit redundant in the sense that what value does learning that actually provide people? Because in
right.
that moment that you have an urge, if you're not empowered to go, okay, I've got a choice here, I can choose option A or I can choose option B, it's a bit like, well, what's the point then? And it can breed that helplessness or that junky thinking of, oh, well, it's because of X, Y, Z, it's because of my evolution. You're saying that that's not actually helping people, and in fact, it can
Yes.
be detrimental.
I'm evolutionarily, is that a word? Evolutionarily
It's a word.
wired to do this, right? So, and you know, 30 some years of doing this work, I see over and over and over the addictive part of the mind trying to get people into helplessness. And I've heard, ad nauseum about the hunter-gatherer mentality from 10,000 years ago is what causes people to want to eat out of control, which, what we were talking about a minute ago, obesity epidemic is going on 15, 20 years-ish. right? Something like that. Time passes so quick. So why do we have an obesity epidemic now in the last 20 years when the hunter-gatherer wiring to not starve to death it happened 10,000 years ago? Why wasn't there an obesity epidemic a long time ago? Because people just gotta hunt and gather, they gotta eat everything in sight just in case their husband doesn't get the kill out there today. And they have food, it just doesn't make any sense. And I can't tell you how many people have told me, well, we're just wired from 10,000 years ago. So helplessness, there I am. I have to do this because this is why I want to do this. But, again, the neuroscience is really, really valuable to our clients in that knowing that, like I said before, even if you were wired 10,000 years ago, a lot of shit happened in the last 10,000 years, I mean, a lot of changes. It's like you can still change the wiring in your brain, but it's not really serving you to go digging up 10,000 years ago where this began or why this is happening. It's happening because you're wired for addictive desire, feeling uncomfortable, acting on it to change the way you feel.
What would you say to someone who said, well, over the last 15 to 20 years, pornography and maybe fast food and unhealthy food in general has become more widely accessible than ever, more novel in the sense that there's more variety now and it's so normalized now. So, what would be your response to that?
I would say that, there's availability for sure. And I would say with food, availability is not the problem. The problem is that intermittently reinforcing the behavior through all the dieting and fitness and all this stuff and barking up the wrong tree, treating obesity itself rather than treating food compulsion. That's the problem. So, but if you treat it correctly, you can be exposed to tons of marketing and food of every kind at every corner and whatever, and you're not going to have that desire for it. And if you do have the desire, you know how to deal with it, and pornography, it's very, very unfortunate that screens have become such a, normal part of life, and that so many young men were exposed to pornography coming into, their sexuality, because that's just, I think that's largely responsible for the pornography epidemic. That availability of it. And, the food's very different because we have so many parents that are super food compulsive, but barking up the wrong tree, restricting their children and making them eat all this just nutritious food and healthy, and fitness. Kids doing yoga and, come on, man. It's like kids eating kale and doing yoga. Wait, what is wrong with this picture? It's like, so there's a lot of elements for food compulsion, but porn, man, that's just so unfortunate that these young guys, they're on their phones and there's that, it's available, it's in your face and you're getting wired. The wiring process, I think, is very different for both. It's similar, but it's that exposure, it's not food being super available. Food's been super available for a very long time. Okay, hunter-gatherers 10,000 years ago, but it's been available for a very, very, very long time, and now we're just having this obesity epidemic in the last 20 years. But porn, this is newer, and it's definitely the availability of the pornography that is creating this epidemic. But, don't fret, man, because there's that awareness. It's like knowing it's there and being able to deal with it. You can change it. You're not going to stop pornography from being available. You're not going to stop food from being available. It's not going to happen. It's how you're going to deal with it based on what you want for yourself in the long term. You know,
I think
it's totally
realistic.
possible.
I think realistically, the only way to actually stop the amount of pornography and the amount of unhealthy foods being available would probably be through knowledge, and that knowledge being passed on to literally billions of people. Because while the demand is there, the supply is going to be there. It's just like
Yeah.
economics, essentially. If there's money to be made, people are going to be out there trying to make money. So if people can make money through porn, they're going to try and make money through porn. But then it becomes a cycle, and then eventually it gets normalized, and then it's just like this prevalent, like ubiquitous problem throughout society where everyone's just suddenly addicted, and that's the norm. And that's really, really scary. Like that is dangerous for any society.
Well, that's
But
where
that
we're
seems
at right now, Tom. I
that
mean,
that is where we're at. Yeah,
I
exactly.
know.
That's
Look at like Wall-E. We've talked about Wall-E. Go look at the images for the movie Wall-E. That's where we're at. People sitting with a screen in a lounge chair, which is, I think, is motorized even. I haven't really seen the movie. I've just read and looked at the images. Big screen in front of them, big gulp next to them. They're all obese, stuck to their screens. This is, I mean, I see Wall-E every time I go drive down the street. I'm stopped at a red light and I look to my left. Here's someone so obese that their stomach is on their steering wheel and they're on their phone. You know, it's like, wait, you're driving. You know, why do you think you're so damn entitled? You can put other people at risk by you can't even drive because you're so overweight and you're on your phone at the same time texting or whatever you're doing. You know, we're there. We're 100% there, and it's a scary thing, but I mean, all we can do is keep on doing the work to get, you know, people in a position of empowerment, but and be able to recognize it. But I mean, even all the normalizing, you can normalize it all you want, but that's not going to change the remember letters of our clients. I mean, before I started working with you with the porn, I would say that, you know, the remember letters that I have from compulsive eaters, these people are living in hell. I don't care how much you want to do fat acceptance. I don't care how much you want to normalize and make jokes about food compulsion. No, don't it'll make you feel better. Blah. So over it. And like that, I mean, these people are suffering. Regardless, you're still going to have to pay those very serious consequences. And now they're starting to normalize porn, make jokes about porn. But now we have the remember letters of the guys. I mean, I just saw another one come in today and I read it and I was actually two of them, I think. And I was like, wow, you know, you can normalize it all you want. You can we started with glamorizing it, right? You can glamorize it all you want. You want to get to the heart of the matter, read some of these remember letters, which now we've got a couple more. We can maybe open up the next podcast with another remember letter.
yeah,
And I actually found another one on my computer last night. I was like, oh, what's this? I was kind of clearing out some emails. It was something I wanted to print, and I reread that. And it was a really intense one about one of our guys with his family and how he just feels like he's just lying to them. And yeah, it's intense. You know, the consequences are going to happen regardless of, even if you want to use evolution as a reason you're doing it, you know, you're still going to pay the consequences, you know?
Yeah, well, what I'll do now then, because one of the reasons in which people do stay addicted, and I think I was talking about this while I was writing about it in my email, is that people are likely to stay addicted indefinitely if they don't actually challenge their junky thinking. And
Yeah.
what we do in our program is we basically share that we respond to people's junky thinking. So what I'll do is I'll just share my screen here. If anyone watching, we're now on YouTube as well for any listeners who want
Yeah.
to go and check out this content. It's called Thomas Molyneux, but I'll talk through this stuff anyway, so you won't be missing out
Yeah.
if you are listening. But yeah, one category that I've added today in our program is the glamorized thinking that we have, and it's just so common. So essentially, we have things like you're tired, you deserve to relax with porn. So that was, what else did they write? They wrote, you deserve a reward after all that work. I know you want this. You've always enjoyed it. And then we had one that was, porn will help me sleep. There was one that was, it was my main go-to for comfort or even boredom. We had one that
Yeah.
was, the only way to truly have peace of mind is to just give in to your desire there's less fighting this way. We had another one that was, again, you deserve a break to relax. Maybe you are cured. The only way to find out is to look at porn and see your reaction. We had one that was, I feel knackered. I need some rest. I've had a lot on at work this week. Another one, if this program is truly going to help you, don't you want to get in as much good stuff now before it ends? So that was someone who hadn't had their liberation day yet. So in like the first week of the program before clients are sort of helped and have their full scripts, you know, someone was saying, well, I may as well look at porn as much as possible now before I have to start using my script, which again, you don't actually have to start doing because you're never deprived. Another one, after saying no to some hookers, that really worked my friends and I. My addicted mind is telling myself I did a good job and I should reward myself with some porn and masturbation. And then something else was another one is, can it be used for good? Can I be addicted to good things? And then someone just saying, I miss it so much. I just feel like I'm missing out. So, you know, there's some junky thoughts there from a range of our clients, and you can just see how manipulative the addicted part of the mind can be. You know, it's always trying to get people to engage. And so what we recommend to our guys is to basically send us a message with any junky thinking, because these guys aren't going and looking at porn. They're just identifying the junky thinking and then sending us a message, sharing that with us so we can talk back to it in the program. And for anyone listening, I highly recommend starting to write down your own junky thinking as well, because that should help you actually identify those bullshit excuses, rationalizations and justifications. But yeah, over to you, Mary. I'm sure you're really wanting to get involved here with the glamorization.
Well, not so much. I just wanted to say that when we have, you know, you just read off the glamorization thinking, you know, we have all the other categories. And then when you recognize yourself in that, with that addictive thought, then there's a video there. You get to watch us respond. So you get the actual response and the interaction with us. And while junky thinking can seem, when you don't know how to recognize it or don't know how to deal with it, it can seem infinite, like, oh my God. And then you're so bombarded with it that you just are like, to hell with it. And then you end up giving into the addiction. But when you have this program, you get to see like, these are the categories, and you start to recognize them, and you're not afraid of them, because not only can you go to our school, you know, whatever you call it, just go to school, right, .com, and find a very comprehensive response. You know, you've got your script to be able to think anything through, and then it's not so daunting, you know, because junky thinking can be daunting when you don't know what to do with it. You know, we've talked before about like the different methodologies that are just like, be with your feelings and all this stuff. A new term, I got a hippie client who's just very sweet smoker, and his new term is feel into it. You got to feel into it, right? So I'm thinking, well, yeah, you can feel into it and you know, be with the discomfort and whatever, but you gotta not just be passively feeling into like that desire. You got to deal with that junky thinking, because that junky thinking, has a way of building on itself until it's like, oh my God, what are, you know, fuck it, I'm just going to engage to stop this madness in my mind, you know. So yeah, we've got it all right there, which is just this really solid ongoing education, you know, that just continues to support that empowerment aspect and the changing of the neural pathways. So it doesn't matter how much exposure there is to this and that out there. It's like I said in the last podcast, I told my guy yesterday, you could surround me with cigarettes and I'm not going to be like, oh, I want that. Oh, how do I stop myself from having that?
Yeah,
that addiction, that's my evolutionary desire to use nicotine. I don't know about that. Oh, well, maybe, you know, the Native Americans, however many years ago, they used to smoke the peace pipe. I believe that was tobacco. So that's where my desire to smoke came from.
I mean,
my evolutionary reward.
To be fair, I think it's more to do with like the dopamine basically being released in a high quantity, and now there's things that like manipulate that part of the brain to still
Yeah,
release a lot of
yeah,
dopamine
that's
in a high
true.
quantity.
Yeah.
Because
And they can't advertise smoking anymore. That's not legal, but which is really interesting, that they can't advertise smoking, but they can advertise, food like crazy when it's like
yeah,
people do not understand food compulsion. It's taking us down, man.
yeah, big
Open
time.
their eyes.
A book I really, really recommend as well. And like obviously this isn't actually going to help people quit food compulsion necessarily, but this book called Ultra Processed People is really good because through reading that book, I came to understand actually how messed up the food industry is. I wish there was a book just like that with the same sort of research for pornography. That'd be really good. I know Your Brain on Porn, I've read that a few times, but Processed People helped me realize like how many weird ingredients is in food. So if you look on the back of a packet for basically any ultra processed food, you're going to see a list of ingredients up to like 20 or 30 ingredients, even more for some. And you're going to see some words you've probably never seen before. And it's
Yeah.
like you're literally putting that in your
Yeah.
body. Like it's so, so weird, but it's so ingrained in our culture. But yeah, just wanted to go back to the junkie thinking and all of that.
Yeah.
I know Mary's just been plugging the course quite a bit. I appreciate that. But it is
Hey,
it
freedom is possible.
yeah,
I
I mean
want to say something about the ultra processed thing.
go on.
So I've heard shop the outside of the grocery store, right? You go around the edges, you've got like the deli, you've got the meat, you've got the produce, you got, right? But the thing is when someone has a food compulsion, all that advice doesn't matter. It's like they're gonna go healthy, unhealthy foods is not the problem. And you're my old, colleague Patty, who died from food compulsion. She used to say, your body will make cells out of anything, which is true. But if you're obese, it's not because you're eating chemicals that are processed. That's not why. It's because you feel compelled to eat far beyond what is reasonable.
Yeah,
That's why
definitely.
you do it. And and I had a woman who was like binging on carrots, she turned orange. I'm serious. It's like, it's not what it's about. It's about the compelling desire to eat beyond what is reasonable,
How many
and you know
carrots do
what?
you have to eat to it be classed as binging on carrots?
I don't know, but you know what? I can go and get my candy bar out of the fridge right now, and I could probably read ingredients that are just like you wouldn't. I don't think there's anything real in that thing. Charleston Chew, man, I love those things. Have a bite here and there. There's nothing real in that candy bar, but it's my favorite candy bar. So I have a bite of a Charleston Chew every now and then. Guess what? I'm not going to get obese
Yeah, no,
because
you're not wrong to be fair.
chemicals.
Like you can
Yeah,
just that's the thing. Like you want to get to a position where you feel like you can just do whatever you want. I mean, I had like this protein shake about 2 hours ago, and I know they have some weird stuff in those, but
yeah,
50 grams of protein and just being to the gym, and I was like, you know what? I mean, the protein stuff's BS as well, to be honest with you. That's just a massive marketing ploy. Like, I'm not
right.
convinced by. Anyway, I digress. There's no point going
Yeah,
into.
we could get off on food compulsion. We'll do a podcast about it at some point specifically. I always tend to like veer off into that because there's so many similarities and there's so much misunderstanding around it that I'd like to be able to reach some of the compulsive eaters out there and let them know there's actually help. You don't have to be stuck in a food compulsion. And,
Well,
and
there's
you
so
also
many
don't have to feel
overlaps.
bad that all the crap that they're promoting out there isn't working for you. It's not going to work for you. Diet, healthy eating, and fitness, you cannot outrun a food compulsion. It's not going to work. It's just going to get worse. So anyway, we'll do it another time. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is with food compulsion is not a lot, but a fair few of our guys who have been in the program, we have identified, yeah, you've got a food compulsion as well, and like just identify that straight away because they've told us essentially, and it's like that's another common strategy for people trying to quit porn is just substitute it out for a load
Yeah.
of food. So
Yeah, well, the thing is with that's where the normalizing of food compulsion is so detrimental to people trying to deal with other addictions because it's like, oh, don't feel bad, just have a donut. But I mean, I don't even want to give donuts a bad rap. You can eat donuts in a reasonable way. Come on, man, I usually have like a half a donut because they're so kind of heavy and they make your tongue feel weird, in my opinion. But I eat a half a donut. But the thing is you're trying to deal with another, more like compulsion that is really, detrimental to your life. And then you just, oh, well, it's so normal just to eat food if you feel uncomfortable. And you got a food compulsion. And I'm telling you what, it's surpassed smoking in the number one preventable cause of death, obesity, food compulsion, which they call it obesity, I call it food compulsion. Obesity is just one symptom of food compulsion. So, yeah, but it's guys, they're going to reach for it and they're going to minimize the cost that there will be if you develop a food compulsion, because then you're never going to get that breaking free of the born compulsion, right? Now you're going to be, we've said it before, fat porn addict. There's an image for you.
Yeah, you got to use your urges as opportunities to rewire the brain. So if you do anything else, then you're just wasting an opportunity to change and rewire those neural pathways and gain real permanent mental freedom.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, let's wrap it up there. We've talked quite a
Okay.
bit. So yeah, I hope you have enjoyed today's podcast. Thank you for watching or listening, and we will see you in the next one. Bye bye.